Hi there, my name is Lukonde Mwila, and I'm a senior technical evangelist at SUSE. I'm not going to bore you with any of my credentials because...
Is it because you don't have any?
What? In this video, I want to share some tips on how to create compelling technical content using videos. And we're going to consider various things on this short journey together. Comfort, excitement, audience, a framework for storytelling, user-friendliness, demos, and what video editing software and equipment that you can use. Now, please bear in mind that all of this information is totally subjective. It's a combination of my personal experience, opinions, and of course, being very deliberate to learn from others. We'll start off with comfort. And nope, this is not about making your viewers comfortable, it's about you being comfortable. And what do I mean by that? I find that one of the biggest challenges, whether presenting live or shooting a video, is overcoming the hurdle of thinking too much about what other people are thinking about you. Are you smiling enough? Are you being funny enough? Are you too loud or too soft? Do you really know what you're talking about? On and on it goes. You need to put your bedroom slippers on. Literally, if you have to. When you go shopping for bedroom slippers, you prioritize your comfort because you'll have to wear them. Now, what on earth does this have to do with conveying a certain message in a technical video? Imagine you're at home where you'd typically be wearing these bedroom slippers, and suddenly your parent, spouse, sibling, or friend walks up to you and asks, "Hey, I hear you use the word Kubernetes a whole lot. What does it mean?" Do you then comb your hair and whip out a whiteboard? Probably not. You proceed to have a conversation with them with very little thought about all those questions I mentioned earlier, because you're already in a space of comfort. As a result, you're more focused on helping someone else understand something, and they're better off for it because comfort helps you forget about yourself. For you, it might not be bedroom slippers. It could be golf, fishing, gaming, or something else. The point is, bring the comfort that that particular domain gives you into the recording space, and you'll be more focused on talking about something that you're already passionate about. Your comfort will make it less about you and more about what you're conveying in the video, which works out better for the viewers. Do you get excited about what you're talking about? Or not? Believe it or not, this has an impact on the viewer. I have friends that aren't in the tech space, but they'll still ask me about AWS, containerization, Docker, Kubernetes, you name it. They don't always understand after I've explained it, but they still get excited because of my excitement. It shows you're passionate about what you do, which in turn reveals that you actually care. It's a little bit harder to sit through a video when the person presenting looks like they would rather be doing something else. Now, I'm not saying be pretentious and hold a fake smile for the full video, but you should probably ask the people that know you best to review whether or not you actually look like you care about what you're doing, are enjoying it, because it'll definitely show in your videos. Next, we're going to consider your target audience. And this is probably the most universal principle on the list. You need to know who you're talking to because that will inform what you say and how you say it. Comfort and excitement are important, but neither one should compromise how you get your message across to the relevant audience. Your technical video might be for solution architects in a corporate environment, or it could be for software developers or DevOps engineers, QAs, or a CTO in the startup space. And there's a lot of technical video content out there, both good and bad. Your video will be another one in that mix competing for the attention of all of these viewers, and they have different ideas about what makes a technical video valuable. And that's fine because a software developer doesn't have the same function as a solution architect or a CTO. A software developer might be more concerned about how a particular framework helps in development along with what the best practices for implementation are. On the other hand, a solution architect might consider such details too low level. They might be more interested in the big picture of a technical landscape and the general implications of using certain tools and technologies compared to others. All of this is information that is useful to be aware of. Now, I've had the opportunity of working with startups and in corporate settings. Experiences with engineers, project managers, solution architects, and other technical roles has given me some domain knowledge on how to cater for their needs in the case that I have to create a video with one of them as the target in mind. If you don't have the experience, that's not a cause for panic. You simply have to do additional research so that you know what's valuable for them. Now we're going to consider one of my favorite points, a framework for storytelling. Every video has a story, but not every story is a good one. Good stories are usually held together by a framework that can be conveyed to the viewer and helps them along the journey of the story that you're trying to tell, regardless of the technology. Imagine seeing a video titled Containerization for Beginners, but instead, the video jumps straight into running Docker commands and then deploying a container into a remote runtime environment for production purposes. By themselves, those two topics are very important and useful. But structured like this, with that kind of title, it's a bad story with a misleading title. Instead, you could talk about the problem that led to containers, how containers solve that problem, briefly cover the container technologies out there, and then select one like Docker and give a basic demonstration on how to create a container locally. The title should tell what the story is about, and the story should point back to the title. Also, your framework will allow you to tell the viewers what they can expect in the video and any positive outcomes from watching it. This list would be incomplete without user friendliness. Beware the curse of knowledge. And I've fallen into this trap so many times, and that's not a hard thing to do. I remember presenting the AWS Amplify framework to fellow colleagues and making such a mess of it. Not because I didn't understand how the framework functioned, but because I spent so much time working with it and then made the wrong assumption that others had the same experience and knowledge of it that I did. So this goes back to considering your audience and the level of proficiency that your content is dealing with. Is it beginner level, intermediate, or advanced? This will help inform what safe assumptions you can make and what you should probably be explaining in great detail. I'll use the container example from before. If you're creating content that is introducing someone to the concept of containerization, don't jump straight to advanced commands. Instead, walk them through the problem, then the solution, a practical solution implementation like Docker as I mentioned, and after that you can give a step-by-step walkthrough. If your content is meant for an experienced audience, then you can assume that they're aware of the fundamentals, and you don't need to spend time explaining those things to them over again. You can assume that they already know it. Let's talk about demos. This one is tricky, maybe the most difficult of them all. But that doesn't mean you can't get it right. You just have to accept that getting it right is a process of trying different things depending on what you're demonstrating. You have to be committed, because demos are usually what people will skip ahead to in your videos. People want to see how things actually work, and usually they don't have the patience for all the theory leading up to it. It's also the section where people decide whether or not you're worth listening to or following altogether. So, how do you do it? I typically consider 3 areas: commands, code, and results. Let's start off with looking at commands. This is usually done with a CLI tool in the terminal. I think it's helpful not just to tell people what a command does, but rather show them. Type it out and execute it. Another tip with commands, if there are a lot of them and processing takes some time, speed up the sequence. It's important for the viewer to see that you're not just telling, but also showing, especially when it comes to commands because they can be done fairly quickly. Next up, let's consider code. Personally, I try not to record myself coding line by line because that takes time, and speeding up something like that isn't very valuable for the viewer. I prefer to have everything already coded out and then do a detailed walkthrough explaining what I did and why I did it. Also, if I'm demonstrating code, I make sure I provide a public Git repo that others can access and make use of. Lastly, let's consider results. It's great to show people how to do things, but nothing instills more confidence in your viewers than seeing that it actually works. Wherever you can, show people the results of what you do, even the mistakes. You can then include how to resolve those mistakes, but seeing results is a big deal. For this last segment, we're going to consider video editing software and equipment.
Hey, dear people of Earth. My name is Yamikani Katunga, and I'll be taking you through the software and equipment section of this video. First and foremost, what matters most is your content. It doesn't matter how good your video looks if your subject matter isn't up to par. But having said that, your audience does need something to watch. So let's get to it. Beginning with software. The software you choose matters just as much as the pots and pans you use when making food in your comfy bedroom slippers. You have a number of options at your disposal, and what you choose depends on what suits you best. Instead of weighing you down with tons of options, I'm going to just focus on 3 so that you can focus on getting to some good cooking in your Kubernetes kitchen. Firstly, the most apparent industry standard is Adobe Premiere Pro from the Adobe suite. Do note that Adobe products are subscription-based, so you'll have to stay subscribed to make use of the software. Secondly, Final Cut Pro. Pretty much acceptable as an industry standard as well, despite not being as popular as Adobe. One reason for this might be because Final Cut Pro is exclusively for Mac users, so if you aren't on Mac, then you're limited to options 1 and 3. Speaking of which, number 3, HitFilm. I may be a little biased, but I really do enjoy HitFilm. Despite not being highly recognized in the industry, it's really powerful and has quite an advantageous perk. There's a version of HitFilm which is completely free, as in you can go to fxhome.com, that's fxhome.com, and you can get HitFilm Express today completely and perpetually free. Despite the software you choose, do note that there will be a learning curve. For the screen recording software, I recommend OBS. It'll do everything you need it to do, including recording your voice as you speak during your tutorial. Now, let's get to equipment. The topic of equipment can get quite dense, and so I'll try to keep it simple. You need something to record video, you need something to record audio, and you need ideal conditions to make sure both of these are recorded well. Let's begin with the camera. If you're watching this video, you likely have a camera, whether it's a webcam or a phone camera. These may not produce the best quality, but they can be a decent starting point. If you want much higher quality, you can start putting together a setup with a dedicated camera that could be a DSLR or a mirrorless camera from popular brands such as Nikon, Canon, or Sony. Good video is great, but equally, if not more important, is good audio. It doesn't matter what you look like if people's ears can't connect with your cool Kubernetes content. The best case situations have dedicated microphones that are close enough to the audio source, your mouth, to get good audio, but not so close that it gets unnecessary mouth noises. If you don't have a dedicated microphone, then try and make sure that you're close enough to your camera's microphone that it picks you up clearly. For ideal conditions, make sure the lighting is good for your video. You may use a dedicated light for this. And make sure you're in a quiet enough environment for your audio, avoiding the most obvious problems like background noises and echo chambers. There's a lot more that could be said, but I'm trying to get you making videos about cool topics like K8s, not keep you here until K late. So I'll just leave it at that for now. Until next time, K later, alligator.